Hello, everybody. We finally were able to go live when we wanted to, and when everybody's watching, I see a few people watching. That's really cool. I welcome everybody being here today. We're gonna talk about technology in vet med, artificial intelligence. We're gonna have a day where some people might kind of trickle in and out, and that's just part of this whole thing. I just want to get a conversation about how technology can help us. Especially artificial intelligence, which is the hot topic now. How it can help us have a better, quality of life at work, and how it can impact our mental health. I kind of want to make that part of our talk, and not just AI and technology, but how we can benefit from it. We have Mark Massaro, like usual, David Diefenbach, Chris Turnblay, and Greg Bishop in the house. I think he's at a comedy bar right now. Is that what's going on?
Hey, what's the deal
You're
with
about.
AI and VetMed?
Yeah, that's good, man. I love that. So you're about to go on stage right now.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Sorry, I'm late. It was
and
totally somebody else's fault.
yeah, I bet. So I think we're working on getting Petra Harms at some point here to join us as our guest. She has
She
a
just she just messaged me back and said I'm restarting my device.
That's good. Perfect. So that's good. That's what life is, and we're flexible. We're all learning how to deal with changes, and I think that's a big challenge anyway in our daily lives. And I just want to start talking about technology and AI. And I think from my side, I just want to say, like, I'm not super old, but I'm in my 40s, and kind of AI is kind of like a little bit of a iffy space. Hi, Petra. Here's
Yeah.
Miss Petra Harms. Awesome. I'm so glad you're here. But I was just gonna be a little bit of a devil's advocate and say, one of the things that I like talking about is what AI cannot do, and why human beings are important to be around AI, and how we build a world where AI is kind of supporting our jobs, and we're not like falling, kind of like as servants to AI, right? That's like a big fear of people my age. And I think with VetMate, I think Petra has kind of brought a lot of information about how we kind of deal with some of those things, how we make things safe to use, and how we can regulate things and make things where people are comfortable using them, know who's responsible for what. That's kind of the general idea. I feel, I've noticed with that. So kind of like mixing them both, like kind of like us being a little hesitant and using it a lot, and her bringing in light all the things that we are kind of wondering about. So um Petra, tell us a little bit about VetMate and what you do, and just a little bit about yourself in general.
Sure. If you're not here,
Oh no.
I don't know.
Petra, your audio is struggling.
Is that me?
can you
I
hear
thought it
me?
was me, because
No?
now
Oh,
we can. Awesome. There you go.
that last one, the
There
"Can
you
you
go.
hear me?" we heard.
Yes. Yep. Don't move. Up. No.
No, I'm
Okay.
not hearing
Hi, Bill.
anything. Let's
Gentlemen, hi, Dr.
What's
Harms. How
up?
are you?
Good.
Good.
Is there a way she can call in, kind of like with a Zoom call where it's like
Maybe if
audio?
you, yeah, maybe if she dropped her video and we listened to her, it might work.
Oh, poor Petra.
Yeah,
She's
she's
the
gonna
star of
try.
the show.
I
That's technology, right? There we go.
Yeah.
That's the subject
Ask Bill a
today.
question about AI. He's always posting about
well,
AI.
Yeah.
I actually I did a deep dive on Petra's stuff beforehand. I can give her a
I
hell
did
of an
a I did
introduction
a
once
very
she starts to
shallow
open up.
dive on Petra's stuff.
All right.
So
Okay. Let's
Oh,
see.
oh, much
She
better. Okay.
has
wonderful. Okay, so
oh,
I was in a
Much
private
better.
area.
Yes.
but you'll notice that I'm now
I
in
was
the
gonna say-
X-ray room. So that's where we're doing
Nice.
this meeting today.
Oh wow,
Thank you.
perfect. That
Guys,
works.
thank,
Yep.
That is a tech savvy veterinarian right there.
heck yeah. So
Adapts to
thank,
what the situation.
yeah, thank you so much for having me on, guys. Sorry about the kerfuffle there. I think that's name of the game with technology. It brings great advantages and then also can screw up sometimes. And that's actually why I'm doing what I'm doing. So we were talking a little bit about an introduction to AI in veterinary medicine. We were talking about, I know you were mentioning some concerns you had about AI and, making sure that we use the potential of it without ending up with the pitfalls. So that's actually one of the reasons that I'm involved in VetMate, and just kind of doing my own, I suppose, following my own stream of advocating for responsible AI governance. So that's why I'm here. Just to answer some questions, if you have any, start the discussion. Direct the discussion in any way that you wish, and I'll follow along. What I do with VetMate is I advocate for literacy in artificial intelligence for practicing veterinarians and veterinary teams. It's near and dear to my heart because when I started out, and this was only a couple of years ago, I'm not a tech genius by any stretch. When I started out in veterinary medicine, investigating artificial intelligence, I didn't see any resources aimed at veterinarians. There were some high-level resources, aimed at tech-savvy people, but nobody like myself. And so I decided to create that resource. And along the way, I took a pile of courses with Harvard and Stanford, all remote, nothing crazy, on AI and human healthcare. Saw the potential of the technology, but also got a good sense of the potential pitfalls. And that's taken me in a direction of advocating for responsible AI governance. So implementing these tools in an ethical ways that serves us while minimizing the harms. And I don't think we'll be able to get rid of the harms entirely, but I know that we can control them. So that's a little bit about myself and VetMate, and kind of the direction that I'm coming from.
I see
wanna
Adele.
chime
Adele
in
joined
here.
us too. So hi Adele, welcome.
Hi,
I'm so
Hi,
glad
I
you made
wanna chime in
it.
here
everybody.
and
she's
say
my sister
something
from another mister. This one.
Good, good. I
about
was like,
Dr.
man,
Harms's
looks
work.
Yeah,
it looks
but
like a
I-
bunch of guys here
I-
with Petra. Like we need, and then Adele
No,
showed
no.
up. I was like, yes.
I like Dr. Harms's work because I think she does a really good job of it, like with VetMate. I think those are really good for like fundamental lectures. Like if you're completely new to AI, like if you know how to spell AI and nothing else, like I think your work, Dr. Harms, does a really good job of like laying out the basics in an accessible way. Because I like talking about like the latest and greatest, and this is neat, and I like deep diving and talking about like the utmost of the cutting edge. And my work, I usually blow right by the fundamentals. I'm like, everybody understands this by now. And that's not the case. So I really like whenever somebody is a veterinarian trying to like learn the first floor stuff, I always point them at Petra's work.
I think to be completely frank, it's there's so much need for those advanced level conversations because that's where the current research and science is right now. I mean, you look at all the publications coming out; they're talking about quite a bit of in-depth technology, and for us as an industry, we really need to catch up, right? We need to learn the language. We need to position ourselves so that we can understand those more kind of nuanced conversations. So much room for people to demystify things at any level. 100% agreed.
I will say, I'll put my hand up and say I signed up for VetMate, I think a year ago, and I've been getting the emails and I have not like logged in and I felt terrible. So literally this morning I was like, I need to like at least watch the first couple videos and it was fantastic. And I'm the opposite of Bill, where it's not that I like kind of assume that people know the basics, but I kind of just jump to I'm sure a lot of us can relate, like just kind of getting done what I need to get done, right? Okay, so my boss wants me to implement AI across our hospitals. Let me just figure out how this one specific program works, teach my teams how to use it, and then I'm like kind of off and running. And I just kind of skipped over all of the basics of what is machine learning, how is that different from AI. I was literally watching your intro, like your first course this morning, and I love the one point you made about like everything I say right now is going to be outdated a year from now, but think about how much further ahead we're going to be a year from now if you do all of these courses and you understand the basics, because everything is getting built on those like foundational building blocks. So I don't know if I have a question so much, or even if you could just speak to the people like me that skip over that part and the importance of learning at least a little bit about how these things work. And if you understand how they work, that kind of informs everything else.
Oh, great question. So in terms of, in terms of the usefulness of these tools, I mean, they really are aimed at people who are frightened of the topic, right? I mean, we're the LinkedInnerati where we know quite a bit about what's happening on the kind of cutting edge here. We've talked about these topics, on LinkedIn and outside of it. But there are plenty of practitioners, day-to-day practitioners that hear the topic of AI and their mind just kind of goes blank. They glaze over, and it's not because they are incapable of understanding this, but number one, they're busy. Number two, it's something completely out of their wheelhouse, right? I mean, we deal with beating hearts and flowing blood. We don't deal with algorithms and models and things like that. So it feels inaccessible, right? So my goal with VetMate was to focus on that population, but even people like us who are kind of coasting and I suppose surfing the wave of the more advanced technology. It's really good to understand where a lot of these pitfalls of AI come from. The idea of hallucinations. Why do they happen, right? Why is bias an issue? Why are we why are we at a stage where we have to really emphasize the fact that no matter what the AI tool does, we bear the responsibility, right? And those, I think, the fundamentals, more than anything, for people who have skipped over them and are, I suppose, working at on the advanced stuff, the fundamentals help explain the source of a lot of these pitfalls and a lot of these potential problems. So it can be useful, but I'll be completely frank. I mean, if you're like Bill or the rest of you, Chris, a lot of and I won't name drop too many people because I don't know who's where, but if you have a more advanced knowledge, you may find that these courses are a little bit more basic than than you really are into.
I think if you don't know the basics, you can't evaluate the newer solutions, right? Like if you don't know what a hallucination is and why it happens, you can't evaluate somebody who's saying, I've eliminated hallucinations. It's like, well, maybe. I think like even if you want to be on the cutting edge, you can't really jump there. Like I think those fundamental courses inform, like if you don't know how something works, like if you don't know the physiology of it, I don't really want to know your opinion on the medicine, right? So I think what Dr. Harms' work does is really
like
important.
Anatomy and physiology.
Yeah, because if you don't know that, evaluating using the other stuff is like, well, you're going to struggle.
I'm gonna physically raise my hand like we do in our Zoom calls. And
yeah, Adele. I think Adele.
Yeah.
Adele was about to say something, so I wanna give her some space too. Go ahead.
Sorry,
Mark.
I'm just terribly polite, but also not.
You are.
I was just going to sort of echo what Petra said. Really, at least in the UK and across Europe, the vets that I've come across, the majority are just terrified and know very little about AI, and it's very easy for us to be in our echo chamber and think that everybody is now up to speed and knows what's going on and is used to using AI tools on a daily basis, and that's just not the case in the veterinary sector at all. And I gotta go. So
I was gonna say,
I'll
while
send
we
some-
have you,
I'll
Adele,
send
is there
some
anything
notes.
else you want to
Are
say?
you-
You're like our resident AI.
I
and
think
Adele.
like Petra and I speak from the same hymn sheet, so she will be able to
Okay,
speak
that's
everything
fair.
that I was going to say. Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
Mark, you had something, Mark or Greg?
No, I was trying to
Adele.
squeeze the lemon of Adele while we still had her.
Gotcha. No, I know, right? I noticed something there. I was like, oh, let's make sure. So I don't. You had something, Greg? I see your
Greg,
hands up.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask Petra just about like what are what are vets using this for? What do you use it for? I assume you're in a vet clinic right now. You're irradiating yourself to risk permanent harm to your genetic material.
Cancer.
That you can join us, which
Yep.
is wonderful. I hope you have your dosimeter on. But also, like, what do you use it for? Do you have any statistics on what people are using? One of the things I did was kind of telemedicine, and it's similar in like it's a technology, and vets hear that and they're like, oh crap, I have to learn something new and I'm too busy, so I'm just going to shut that down. So there's like 4% use of video-based telemedicine, but I'm just curious, like, what do you use it for, and what are you aware of other veterinarians using it for in practice, and just kind of what are some practical things that you've come across?
Oh, wonderful question. So full disclosure, I don't own my own vet clinic. I am an associate, so I don't make the big decisions. And our vet clinic is right now not using any AI integrated PIM systems. I think that's going to change in the next 6 months or so, and so that's something that's on the docket. But even indirectly, we do have a use of AI-based technology. For example, our reference laboratory IDEX has tools that use AI assessment of, let's say, urine sediment analysis, and so that's something that's integrated into our hospital, and we don't, as veterinarians, we don't even recognize that it's there, right? I think. And you folks will definitely recognize this going into conventions and things like that. Some very, very powerful tools that are coming out are ambient scribes. So that's a very popular one because it saves a lot of people money and time, essentially. Those being the same thing. So ambient scribes are a big one. Tools have come out that will summarize medical records, for example. Some veterinarians that I've talked to have used Chat GPT to formulate messages or summarize medical records. By the way, do not enter patient medical data into Chat GPT. It is not a private link.
That's really good advice. Good,
yes.
Really good advice there.
Yes.
I don't know that that's true.
Yeah,
I think the paid version is private.
You could turn off.
I think the free version is open. I think the paid version.
Yeah.
Really?
You could say.
I've always struggled with doing that. Putting anything from my patient's info to create a record like on ChatGPT. I'm not sure about that.
You could tell it to not use the data that you're putting in for training. So it stays. This is my understanding from talking to people. You have to click on, otherwise it's all all that private information you go back to the.
It
but
has
like
a
stuff
means to do that, but you have to be conscious of it.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Like DeepSeek, for example. Like I'm writing my patient's info there. It's like, let me write their address and their phone number.
Oh, you might as well.
Social security number, but
yeah. Exactly.
So
adding on to that, very popular tools these days that are being developed are radiology interpretation. That's a big one. I think pathology reports, path reports will be coming pretty quick if they're not already here. There is a interesting push in education, creating digital twins of students that might play a role in, for example, in, let's say, veterinary schools at some point in the future, to help educators understand how to best and most effectively teach their vet students. And then outside of the private practice realm, AI use in research is a very big topic, and then you can kind of move on outside of that. So that's a bit of a summary for you.
That's
Can
good.
I jump off
go
of
ahead,
that?
Mark.
Okay. Oh wait, no, there was a hand up. We're following the rules. David Diefenbach, you go.
Petra, hi, I'm Dave Diefenbach. I actually work on the industry side, and this group is grateful enough to include all veterinary professionals in the group. But I'm the one in my industry, at least, who I'm aware we market to AI. But on my personal use, I want AI to do things like my dishes, tasks I don't want to do. Do you see? Well, first of all, I actually want to thank you for that comment about indirect AI use, because that was a really thoughtful comment. I don't think about that often, that every veterinarian is exposed to AI indirectly because we're using it in industry, and it's important that they understand at least. It's our job to make sure it's not hallucinating and doing all the right things before we release it to you. But are you seeing much from AI yet, either interest or actual products where people are taking over the mundane tasks and the work that you don't necessarily, the repetitive work? Are you seeing that much yet, or is that coming soon?
That's I think part of the great question, and I will be the first to invest in AI that does my dishes. So just put me first in line there. But yes, I think the push for AI scribes is one. And for example, I mean, there are mundane tasks that are already being done by AI-based tools. Things like, filtering your email for junk mail, right? Things like that. Those are invisible tools that work in the background that are effective at what they do. Yes, I mean, the answer is yes. We are, we are definitely going to see more and more push from service providers who recognize that, we would like to minimize our time spent, doing the busy work and maximize our time spent doing the, I suppose the stuff that we love, right? And interacting with people, clients, pets, in the insurance industry, same thing, clients, right? One of the points that this brings up, though, is that at the moment we're in a situation where the practicing veterinary population are in a disadvantaged position when it comes to self-advocacy. And what I mean by that is that there are almost two layers to the industry. One is the layer of the industry that's in the know. Often they are product providers, developers, things like that. And then and a small percentage of veterinarians and a growing percentage of veterinarians that kind of understand what's going on and understand the technology and are early adopters. But then there are the substantial population of vets that don't understand the technology, are somewhat, as Adele said, terrified. She's fabulous, by the way. But yeah, they're kind of terrified, right? And because they are lagging in getting involved, they don't feel like they know enough to be to advocate for themselves. The needs of those veterinarians are not being held as central, and there are. I think there's a big opportunity here when the industry, the AI in vet med industry is nascent. There's a big opportunity here for practicing veterinarians to center their priorities, their interest. I want AI to do my dishes, not go through the diagnostic process with my client. I want AI to write my medical records, not have a conversation about feelings, right? And so one of the important, I think, messages to take home right now is that in order to center your interests as a practicing veterinarian, you really need to get involved in at least getting a basic understanding of this technology and feeling like you can ask the right questions, you can advocate for your needs, you can stand up and say, hang on, no, I don't want it to do this. I want it to do this. I want it to do the busy work, and I'm not. And have that ability to say, I'm not satisfied with what is, what this product is doing. I would like it to do something a little bit more, in this direction or that direction, right? Because otherwise, what we're going to end up with is two layers of population. One, which is the one that is developing AI in their own with their own sense of what they want, and then the laggard population, that's not an insult, but the lagging population that does not necessarily feel that their needs are met because they're not heard, right? So advocacy is huge, and yes, the more people we tell that AI should be doing our dishes, the better, for sure.
I think two things. Like I think decisions are made by the people who show up. So if people want input, like educate and speak up. Like it's for the moment a free country. Like say something.
For the
like
moment.
it was a joke. I'm not making a political statement there.
Is it? No, it is.
We're not doing that today. But I also think there's a lot of people who are developing AI, and we've had discussions on LinkedIn, Petra and I, and like other people who are like, oh, the AI is not clinical ready. The AI doesn't save that much time. It's like these people aren't practicing medicine. And these
I had a question for you, Bill, actually.
Yeah.
Right about that. So like that's exactly what I wanted to kind of ask you as a practicing vet, right? Like, how do you use AI? Like, because we can talk about a blood machine. We can talk about potassium levels and how it helps us, and an X-ray machine, and we can find bladder stones. But like, what do you do tomorrow that you use AI for? Like, what is it for?
I think if you're a practice owner, the first thing you do is sign up for VetMate and take the basic courses, and then I think if you're a practice owner, you put a crowbar in your wallet and spend $20 a month on the paid version of GPT or Claude. I like GPT, but if you like Claude better, I think it's probably better for writing right now, but I think it's real close. And what people are building, it's not clinical ready. It's like, it's not clinical replacement ready. It's clinical augmentation ready. I use it every day. I use it
for what? Like, that's kind of like what I wanted to ask you.
I use it for research. I use it for synthesis. I use it for the deep research function is the greatest thing ever. It is like, it'll take half a day's work and produce 5,000 words that you can use in 10 minutes. Like, I think it's another tool to use. There's an analogy that was in a white paper that from Harvard Business School in Wharton it's now a year or two old, but it was like cyborgs and centaurs. And centaurs are like, the analogy is that this is where the human is and this is where the horse is, and like this is where the human is, this is where the AI is, and there's a clear break. But if you use it to like augment little bits of work, and you're like, it's like slightly involved in little things you do, and therefore the human is always in the loop, and it extrapolates what you do, I think, man, that is really potent, because humans have like a jagged edge of performance, and the AI does too, but it's probably a lot better at certain things than I am. And if I can take advantage of those, boy, that's cool. And Petra has her hand up.
Yeah, go Petra.
Yes. Oh, William and I have a history of engaging in debate. And I wish
that's how we get better. Yeah. Somebody should have those conversations.
Yeah, that's super normal.
100% agree. Now we're focusing a little bit on ChatGPT or large language models, right?
About LLMs, yeah.
And yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, the ability to basically ask ChatGPT to explain pancreatitis at a 11th grade high school reading level
in Spanish
to your owner, right? Fabulous, right? However, it is definitely caveat emptor, and the reason that I say that is I have a friend of mine, close friend, who is researching her PhD, for example, and she brought to my attention. She said, "Are you aware that these programs, what they do is they'll ChatGPT specifically." She will ask for example, provide X number of cited papers that will explain this topic to me. And everything looks very legit to the point where, you have actual citations, you've got topics on the papers. When you click the link, it leads you to somewhere completely unrelated. So the risk of hallucinations, even in the paid version of ChatGPT, is still real. It's still there. And so the big I think caution with this is, these things are not clinical ready. They are clinical assistance ready. I really like that wording from Bill. Yeah. The other thing is, sorry, go ahead.
Replacement ready. They're not replacement ready. They are augmentation ready.
Yes, and augmentation ready with trust but verify, right?
Everyone's putting their fingers on because they want me. At some point, one of the things we want to do with FlareVet is make it interactive with the audience, like that. We love that we're doing this live, and so when they do post a question, we try to pin it. With this poor Nathan has had his question pinned for like
ignored
10
poor
minutes.
Nathan.
It's been like 27 minutes, I think.
But just so
no, it's okay.
While, we want to draw.
It's all good. It's all good.
They literally dropped a new model of AI
in the time it took us to ask Nathan's question. Yeah. Which is going to happen because we get so excited about this stuff. But so Petra, what facet of veterinary medicine do you think will change the most due to AI in the next few years?
I think that will depend on how our industry pushes our own agenda as veterinarians. I believe that AI will absolutely exist as a kind of in the exam room assistant. And this already exists. This is old news, right? I mean, you walk in. This answers one of the earlier questions. I think it was Jonathan that was asking. You walk into an exam room and you have an ambient listening scribe. You're having your conversation with your vet. You get much more face-to-face contact with your client and with your patient. While the ambient listening scribe records all of that information. So that I think will become pretty much standard in the next few years. Now, whether this technology will start to push to kind of replace the diagnostic process or aggressively augment, I suppose, in terms of suggesting diagnostics, suggesting treatments, that will depend on how involved veterinarians are in establishing their desires and boundaries. Now, everybody has a different opinion. In my humble opinion, at the moment, there is a risk to replacing the diagnostic thinking, the practice of thinking diagnostically, where AI can do it. Honestly, they can do it. AI can do it just as well. The the technological program can think diagnostically just as well as a physician at the moment. The question is do we want to give up our skills in this respect to a computer program? If we are not feeling strongly about that, then I think AI is going to move from being just an assistant in the client appointment to minimize our busy work of typing, and we'll move to making recommendations diagnostically, making recommendations therapeutically, and how we manage that will dictate which direction the industry goes. I think you're also going to find much more accessibility in terms of interpretation of radiographs, for example, interpretation of histology slides. That is, I mean, it's here. It's just a question of adoption, mainstream adoption. Again, it will how heavily it's involved or it's integrated into medicine will depend on, number one, advocacy of the veterinary practitioners, what they want to see, what they don't want to see, their recognition that that AI tools do not replace your due diligence as a licensed professional. And it'll also depend on how many screw ups we end up with, right? Right now, we're kind of in the early stages of adoption, and I don't know if or when. Well, it's not if. I don't know when we'll run into situations where AI makes a mistake or hallucinates or gives evidence of bias, and a veterinarian loses their license or gets sued in small claims court or what have you. And I don't know how that's going to affect the direction. William, it's your turn.
I actually, I'm with you on those things and the development of those things, but I think, your primary mission in this, the education, the continuing education, like the ongoing education of this, is really what's going to protect us and shape us. I think the beauty of AI, the real power and potency and pluripotency of AI lays in the perspective and the communication elements of it, which veterinarians aren't always great at, because we spent 8 to 10 years learning medicine and science and not always that much time learning communication. But education is basically communication anyway. So I see communication and education being like ripe for opportunity especially with the LLMs. And I usually talk about LLMs. I don't talk a lot about the machine learning, the radiology or that kind of stuff that I think I don't, for all my talk about AI, I don't use them in my practice. So there's my endorsement of
we used to go ahead, Mark, go ahead.
Okay, because I want to speak to the pinned
question. Yeah.
And actually, one of the things that blew my mind the most is that Petra Harms is not using it in her clinic with all the AI tools. I was like, somebody needs to talk to whoever owns Petra Harms' hospital. Like, she's, again, like when people ask me
Petra,
about AI, I will say, listen, I know about implementing an AI tool across a bunch of hospitals, and I know how to deal with the resistance that veterinarians and veterinary technicians will put up against it. Like, I just posted in our private chat, that's been my life for the last year, is dealing with the implementation of it.
Yeah.
If you want to know more about what AI is and how it works, you need to go listen to Bill Tangradi and Petra Harms and Adele Williams Xavier. I kind of point. So that's like my mind kind of exploded when I didn't realize that, Petra, you haven't gotten to really use some of these tools, these veterinary specific tools. There are a million out there. The question that was pinned was about a strategy for maybe we get some of our more senior clinicians on board and that kind of trickles down to the rest of the staff. I can say from experience, this is an effective strategy. Absolutely no question. What I have found, we use this terminology a lot in my world about a champion. That, I mean, really with software implement, David Diefenbach can speak to this. With software implementation in general, it's really important to have a champion in the clinic that is speaking to, and it can be me kind of. I travel between our clinics. We have 7 of them. But what I found was very often I would enter a clinic and I would say, I came in, they knew I was coming and say, okay, I'm here. I'm going to teach you guys about our new AI tool that we're paying for. So we want to like try it out and see if we like it. And immediately I was shut down, right? Not by everybody, by a certain number of people. Go ahead, Chris. Oh no, are you muted or your sound's not working?
Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, we can now. There you go.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in and comment on your point about a champion. So one of the things, my previous life in manufacturing, we used AI, we used automation. The champion internally is huge. I would also recommend that it not be a veterinarian. It needs to be someone who can go in between and adoption from the top down and the bottom up. There needs to be collaboration. And I'll tell you why. When we did AI implementation, the engineers aren't available for the people at lower levels. So in this particular case, the veterinarians aren't always available for people at an administrative level to go and interrupt because they don't understand AI. So if there's a champion,
you mean a practicing veterinarian, like somebody like Mark Massaro, for example?
What you're describing is me.
You mean like a practicing vet, maybe? You know, that's what you mean.
What I was saying was more like someone like Bill. In Bill's environment, where he is the practicing veterinarian, he's in the middle of surgery. The CSR isn't going to go and interrupt Bill and say, "Hey, I can't get the AI to work." So having collaboration at multi levels and getting the discussion going amongst the whole group is paramount for success.
I agree. An article that I wrote on, there are implementation experts, and I wrote an article on tech implementation, just where I cite these guys who literally defined organizational change. And we'll get to Petra, but like, this problem's been solved. So if you're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, it's like, no, wait, somebody already, just like you don't have to come up with your own Clavamox dose, somebody already did the implementation thing.
Go, Petra.
So I 100% agree. It shouldn't be somebody, or the implementation champion shouldn't be somebody who's taking appointments. 100%. I do strongly feel that it should be somebody with a veterinary background. Doesn't have to be a veterinarian per se, but a technician, somebody with lots of experience. And again, because there does have to be that connection, right? It can't be technology talking to the vet. It needs to be a vet talking to a vet, and that interface needs to have the
Or
technological.
vet related. Somebody vet related. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. One last thing, sorry, before we move on from this, you mentioned hesitancy to adopt. The one thing that no service provider has ever done to date is approach somebody who's skeptical like myself from a hazards mitigation approach and a data-based approach. So instead of saying, we'll save you a bunch of money, I haven't heard anybody come to me and say, this is our product. Here is how we maximize privacy, your safety, your security. Here is our how we measure our frequency of errors. Here's how our program performs against benchmarks. Unfortunately, that's a little hard because benchmarks don't exist yet, so a little bit early. But here's how we minimize hallucinations. Here is how we deal with the fact that that an error happens. We have a robust retraining program or a data error feedback program, what have you. So we're all approaching this from a this is going to save you time, which I think makes a lot of sense in terms of getting the senior clinicians on board. But to minimize their fears, we can't just sell the benefits, right? We need to minimize their sense of risk, right? And that isn't quite there yet, at least not from the sales pitches that I've seen.
Yeah.
So Greg had his hand. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh yeah, Greg, go ahead.
Really quick, because I've used mostly the LLMs, and this is a question for the people really knowledgeable about that. I haven't gone deep into how these things work and all that stuff. But why can't they make a joke? They're terrible at coming up with jokes. I've tried.
Oh man, the new ones are actually really good at it. Like the 4.5 and beyond, like 4.5 and 3.7, can actually make a human laugh.
It came out this morning.
That's an important benchmark. That is a great benchmark, actually. And somebody on my post yesterday commented that 4.5 is the best one so far for the make a real human laugh benchmark.
I think it called Bill like flat white, so I thought that was pretty funny.
A lot of fun of me. Like you should look at the post.
Flat white. What else? Summon bulldozer, rational bulldozer.
It was worth a It was like you can laugh at me there. I'm laughing.
Okay, can I do one for Greg real quick, just to prove him wrong? Try to prove him wrong.
Yeah. I want to see.
So write me a joke about Greg Bishop, who is a veterinary cartoonist. Oh, no. Why did Greg Bishop get kicked out of the clinic?
Why?
Every time he heard draw blood, he pulled out his
that was the joke. Yeah, it's draw blood.
Okay. Yeah. That was not fun.
All right, so it didn't work. All right.
It didn't work.
I mean, that's a dad joke, right?
It's like one of my jokes.
That's okay.
But I did want to speak to the implementation. I didn't get to finish my story. We all are so passionate about this. Yeah. But I wanted to quickly, and I totally agree with what Petra is saying. And actually what Petra is saying is the part that I miss, to be honest. And that's where I usually say, listen, I'm not the expert. Go talk to the company. Like I said, oftentimes the discussion about security and privacy, that's more like in the pre-sale thing where like the owner of the clinic is talking to the individual AI scribe, AI assistant tool to making sure it's safe. And then once we've signed on, like, again, what I'm starting to see now is, what's one that I've seen recently? Bond, that are like these 70, 80, 300, 400 clinic groups will sign on with one of these AI assistants, or Digital has its own AI assistant. Some of these PIMs have their own. And then it becomes a question of implementation, where I do think that conversation needs to continue on to the individual veterinarian, veterinary technician, CSR, and to Chris's point, that's exactly, and to John's point, that is exactly the point of me, is that when Bill Tancredi is doing surgery, he's not helping the CSR transcribe and summarize her phone call, her 25-minute phone call she just had with an owner. But in terms of actually successfully implementing one of these programs, that is like the one piece where I feel like I can speak to. I had a lot of resistance early on where it's going to take my job. I don't trust it. I don't want it listening. And I think what's really, really important, and the major mistake I see people making, again, to answer this question, but like, how do we just get people on board with trying these things, is to not send an email. Do not send an email with a video or with a link to dozens or hundreds of people. And this is what I'm talking about being a champion. Go to the clinic, sit next to, I would physically sit next to each individual veterinarian, each individual technician, and show them when I'm talking about how it works. I'm not talking Petra Harms, how it works. I'm talking about, look, I can mess with the template. I can mess with the prompts. This is, let's do a fake appointment together or a real appointment together. And I'll show you how it's summarizing the information into a bulleted list or into a paragraph and how I can manipulate those things.
There's a rule of thumb floating around out there of like fiddle, like the 3 late night rule, like 5 to 10 hours of just like tinkering with it.
Right.
Yeah. And then decide if you're like, no.
I think that reduces their anxiety. And I went to a conference about this and I was talking to other people in the profession about this, about again, trying to like break the seal on these types of things. And I've heard people say, oh, well, we just make it mandatory. You have to use this. And we didn't want to do that. So instead of making using the AI mandatory, what we made mandatory was you have to let Dr. Mark show you the AI. That was mandatory. And so I would do 1 or 2 cases with them to show them how it works, like actually show them how it's summarizing information. And then they would say, well, I don't really like the plan section. It doesn't sound like me. And I would say, okay, can you tell me more about that? What doesn't, and this is to Petra's point about having the people in the clinic having some level of veterinary background to navigate these conversations. Because I kind of had an idea of why they didn't like the way a certain section sounded. And then I could pop into the template builder, adjust the prompt, and then say regenerate. And then all of a sudden now it sounds a lot like them within like 30 seconds of me messing with it. And kind of opening the curtain and showing them that a little bit more about how customizable, how adaptable some of these tools are, especially, again, to your guys' points, the people who have never even touched ChatGPT. I think sometimes Adele was saying this, we get in our echo chambers, right? Where we make these assumptions that everybody's at least tried it. There's a lot of people out there that have never touched AI at all. Don't like, for example,
real quick, like Greg, like you go to different clinics or at least 2.
Yeah.
I work at the same clinic like Petra. I don't own it. I don't make decisions on AI. So I basically tinker with AI. I have to write a bandage care article. I go and have ChatGPT. I read it, make sure it's okay. I give it to the owner, right? I just have found ways that I can just come up with because the person I work with might not see it even necessary at all. Now he finally got one of those little microscopes that does it for you type thing, right? That uses AI. But like Greg, how do you, like the different clinics, the different conversations you have, like, have you noticed any like actual benefit or interest, or like how does it look in the field? And then we'll go with Petra after.
Yeah, I talk about it a lot with people. I've been using, I basically use ChatGPT all day long when I'm on clinics. I have it open. There's a GPT called Vet ClinPath that is put together by a clinical pathologist. That's just like the amount of the references that it uses are very good. So I use it for writing discharges all the time. I take my medical records. I say, use the plan section, write this in simple language. And it's just clear. And it just helps a ton to have that follow-up, right? Because if I'm talking to the client 10, 15 minutes, I'm going through all this information and they're like, whoa. And then I say, don't worry, here it all is again. And it's explained and here's highlighting the important stuff. So I use that a ton. I have it check my records. I say, hey, look at this. Did I miss anything? Sometimes if I'm like, I'm not clear on a concept, I'll ask it and I'll query it, and then I'll double check it with stuff on Vin or other resources. So I'm just like, I'm constantly using it all the time, and it's great for that sort of like quick back and forth stuff. I have found that it hallucinates like a fair amount, so I'm always skeptical. This is funny. I was actually doing an ER shift yesterday, and we got referral records from one of like the big fancy specialty clinics in the area. And they had a dog that had thrombocytopenia, and there was like this long list of differential diagnoses. And this is like a beagle or something. and it was like, consider feline leukemia virus, consider Akita breed-related disorder. And we're like, what the hell is that? Like, this is not an Akita with FELV induced thrombocytopenia. Like, so clearly this person just copied and pasted it without even looking at it. But I do think like there's amazingly efficient uses for it, like in real time in the clinic. But I just do it on my own. Like the colleagues that I've talked to they're very skeptical. They're very nervous. They're not sure how to interact with it. It's the minority that are really like excited and seeing the potential.
I had a quick question. I know we're coming up on the end here. I have two questions for Petra. The first one would be, what do you think of the new, some of the newer models that are built, the RAG engines built into the LLMs as a resource? And also in teaching people, what are you finding is like the most, what's unexpected, what's unusual, what surprises you about their responses to your courses? Right.
So, I mean, I love RAG augmented. Anything RAG augmented is I think the next step. Agentic, whatever you want to call it. AI is going to be the next, I think, next evolution of AI. So, I mean, things are improving. Somebody wrote something on LinkedIn the other day, and I just loved it. Was the concept of today is the worst that AI is ever going to be.
I saw that.
Blew my mind.
That's Ethan Malik for years now. Yeah, he's been saying that. Yeah,
exactly. And it's and you're sitting there thinking, my God, right? I mean, like you said, in the course of literally this talk, I'm sure that there has been some kind of progress in the technology.
Yeah, that's what we said an hour ago isn't true anymore.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, agreed. I do like RAG augmented technology, agentic AI. I'm curious about. I haven't learned enough about it to speak with any kind of intelligence about it. But yes, anything that decreases our frequency of hallucinations, anything that increases the specificity of the answers that we're getting, that's always in our favor, right? In terms of things that have surprised me, I think there's coming from our little bubble of I suppose echo chamber of people who are very curious and keen about these technologies and wanting to learn about them. I've actually been surprised at how reasonably passive your average veterinarian is when it comes to interfacing with AI, right? And this isn't just in primary care practice, but although I do see a lot of that, right? I see a lot of very, very risk averse human beings, right? Who I mean, that's what we are as a profession. We have one license, right? So we are risk averse as a profession. We are taught to do no harm, right? So on one hand, it shouldn't surprise me that there is so much passivity right now in veterinary medicine about learning about AI, but it does, and I think it's because I've been skewed by working with you guys and seeing all the enthusiasm that comes from this quarter about learning about the technology and having an opinion. It's not just the primary care practitioners, right? I've seen not a lot, but I have seen examples of passivity in terms of, I've been told by veterinarians that, that it doesn't matter, right? That it's learning about this is not something that they feel is important to them. And then at the flip side, you go to these conferences and everything is AI, right? And so I wonder whether there is a way to fire veterinarians up about understanding that these are risks that they need to manage. These are risks they need to know about, they need to manage, and these are advantages that they can take a hold of and use to improve their practice.
Yeah. This afternoon, right? Yeah, like right away.
Exactly.
And Mark brings up an important point.
Yeah,
and I think we've talked about. I know Petra's talked about this, and Petra and I have talked about this. We want to circle back to this being about mental health, and I think AI has a a massively positive experience impact on mental health. And if Dr. Harms could speak to that, that'd be great.
Huge. Yeah. So mental health, my goodness. Yes, absolutely. I think we can all agree that the less time we spend writing medical records, the better. The more time we spend face to face with our clients and our patients in the exam room, right, rather than writing notes, the better. The better supported we feel, in selecting our tests, the better, right? I think our industry has run into burnout from, possibly ill-advised or ill-conceived tools in the past, like certain PIM systems and EMRs that have made practice much more difficult. I've personally seen a colleague go through massive burnout and actually have to leave practice because of them. So any tool that has the potential to improve our quality of life, our quality of practice, less pajama time after hours writing notes, is a huge advantage. And so, yes, absolutely. I think it's, AI is very real as a resource to improve mental health for practitioners. It's also, however, it's got the potential to harm mental health, right? If we don't do things right, if we don't advocate for uses that make sense to us rather than surveillance type uses, which is something that has been brought up, right, with these AI assistants in the exam room. So we have a lot of room to improve our mental health. We have a lot of room to improve our quality of practice and feel good walking in and out of the clinic on time. But we also need to make sure that we make our mental and practice health the central theme and topic of this technology. And that's why we need to talk about it now.
We want to make sure that, like, when we're implementing this at the clinics, it's not just like, oh yeah, we have more time now to see more patients because you don't have to write anymore. So we're going to take off that time you had.
It really does. It's a massive improvement to, it can lighten emotional loads. It can take off some of the busy work. It can really make things, if you use it right and safely and responsibly, and after you've taken the VetMate courses, it is really potent and it'll do you a lot of good.
But
it's
when
a lot of good.
Do our dishes? When? How long do we have to wait?
Yeah. Thanks for asking the important questions, Craig.
If only there was a machine to do that for us.
No dishes or laundry or any of that yet. Just writing your notes for you.
Still scrubbing by hand.
I think we always tie this into mental health, and that's really, I guess, the benefit that we're hoping for when we sign up for things like that, right? That we're gonna get more time, not to work more or more time to be at the clinic longer or do more things for the clinic, but more time for ourselves and our family, and more time for the things that I think are important in our lives that really matter, right? And I think our jobs matter, but we also have a life to go to and families. And I think tying in how AI can really, really benefit that aspect of our lives, I think is going to be important in getting buy-in from veterinarians, because if it sounds like more work, something new to learn, more complications,
right? I
can write my chart in 2 minutes and go and not be complete, and I don't care, but at least I don't have to learn something new. It's really emphasis on how is that going to help that person be happier, right?
And I think that's if you think about, I was implementing this in some of our emergency services, and when you're going from patient to patient to patient for a 10-hour shift, you don't remember 10 hours ago, oh, was it the right ear or the left ear? What you know what I mean? Because, there's only so much you scribble down. And so one of the things I've seen is people say, oh my God, my notes are so much more complete now. And then when that pet goes to recheck later, or they come back in through the ER, your notes are more complete, which will lead to better patient care. So I try to do both sides. I will say the one thing I don't do, which I'm going to try to do more now, listening to Petra Harms, is, I'll do a lot of this will save you time. This will get you home on time. We're not going to shove a million more appointments in that space. It's actually to help you with work-life balance and getting home on time. But it's also going to improve patient care. And then I totally agree. I think one of the things I haven't focused on enough is that, there is a certain level of security built in. One of the things I talk about is, at least for the scribes, I think the risk of hallucination is a lot less, because the ones that are using ambient listening, because it's not really pulling information out of nowhere. It's not like, give me a differential diagnosis.
Yeah, they're
for this
designed not
pet.
to make stuff up, right?
It's using the conversation from the exam room. So in terms of like an entry point, I find it to be a very successful entry point to get people in, because it's purely just taking the 45-minute conversation it heard and summarizing it into history, physical assessment plan. And then once people are on board with that, then it's like, hey, it can also read your records for you. Hey, it can also suggest differential diagnoses and treatment plans, and you can either accept or reject what it's
solves
suggesting.
the problem, right? Like
But
does
I'm going to
something
steal
that
a
we
quote
don't
from
want.
Bill Tancredi. It's not going to steal your job. It's going to steal your paperwork. I think that's like a really nice point of entry for a lot of people.
Nice. I think that's a good way to end the session here. I think it was really nice to have you, Petra Harms.
Yes,
I think,
thank you, Petra.
I think you're
Thanks for joining
a
us.
great person to kind of get us a little motivated on this and lose the fears. And joining VetMate was the number one thing that I think most of us recommended here. I mean, and not to be swayed one way or
like
another.
we're like
but
corporate shills, but do it. No, really, go check it out.
Yeah, check it
It
out.
has
Check
value.
it out,
I mean, like it's
yeah.
like CE with value. Like there you go.
Well,
And then find, I think there's good ways to find little spots in your daily life in VetMed that AI can help you with, and you have to do your own research and get motivated.
absolutely, guys. Thank you so much for having me. It's it's an honor and such a pleasure. You are, I mean, just an incredibly powerful group with what you do, and I can't wait to keep supporting you, keep watching you, because FlareVet is a fantastic initiative. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. I think we're gonna cut
Yeah,
here,
we'll
and
end
we'll
it,
see you next month.
Yeah.
Yep. See ya. Bye.